Alright, I already put in some blue sky up there. I put a few clouds up in the sky with on the blue sky. And just remember, whenever you do your clouds, you just take little circular motions, put a little bit of white on your fan brush, and just do little circular motions to get your clouds in there. Then you just blend it all back together, the bottom edge of your clouds. In this painting, it's going to be black waterfalls, so a lot of that sky is going to get covered up with trees and tree branches, so we're not too concerned with that sky up top, so you don't go too far with just working it too much. Now, if that sky was going to be the prominent part of the picture, we could have worked a lot harder on showing bigger clouds, but we're not going to have that much of the sky showing. So now what we're doing is just coming up and putting a few distant trees back in the back. Take your fan brush, take the lightest color of the sky, try to match the sky as much as you can with being a little bit darker, and then load both sides of the fan brush and just tap in a downward motion, so you're kind of dragging the paint down while you're tapping it. You tap with the top corner of the brush, and just kind of pull down with it. As you can see, I'm loading up the paintbrush now with a little bit darker color because it didn't show up much the first little bit that we did. So I did decide to put the easel in front of my desk and use my chair to set in. It's a little bit different than I'm normally used to, but I'm using this new Razer webcam. It does pretty good, but trying to get used to the OBS software is kind of difficult. I was here playing with my grandson earlier. He is definitely keeps you running and running, so but I wouldn't trade it for the world. He's a great kid. I just thank God for keeping us all safe while we're going through this COVID-19, and just pray that He keeps everybody else safe that is going through it and is getting sick. Pray for a speedy recovery. I hope that you guys just continue to subscribe and like, leave some comments, let me know what you think. I'll start adjusting my picture a little bit. I did this pre-recording, so I'm recording back over with my voice. I really didn't want to do it this way, but I wasn't sure how this painting was going to turn out. So now what I'm doing is I'm just putting that little bit darker trees up in front of the lighter trees that I did. And then what you'll see is I'll come back with a little bit of white on a brush, and I'm going to tap at the bottom edge of that tree to give a little bit of mist. So I only ended up using a 3/4 inch natural hair brush. It's like a boar's hair brush. So you just tap that in, and just tap the base of those trees. Now, if you had liquid white on this canvas, which I don't use, I just used an oil on top of the canvas first. But if you had liquid white on there, which is what Bob Ross used, then you could just tap the base of that um, those trees, and it would automatically mix with the liquid white. But what I'm doing is I'm just putting a little bit of white on my brush and tapping at the bottom of it. And then you'll take the brush and just go straight up, uh, just to let that mist go through the trees a little bit. And you'll see it just gives you a nice little mist. We're going to be doing several rows of trees in here to come down this mountainside. Uh, the mountains come down to where your waterfall starts, and then you'll see that there's a bunch of rocks and stuff that comes down up in front of these trees, and then you'll have your water that starts to come down. But I hope you're enjoying this. I enjoyed painting this. I've done several of the Black Waterfalls paintings, and I've just enjoyed all of them. They come out a little bit different each time. This is just one that I did from my head, from just watching and doing it before. So this time was just out of my mind. I was able to recreate what I remember seeing. It's a little more difficult. I wasn't looking at a picture to do this, so I like to do freestyle painting where I just start putting paint on. Um, you end up with something that's unique, and you don't get to see other people have this painting. So that's the nice part about doing freestyle. Plus, it's enjoyable. You don't have to worry about it. Whatever way it comes out is the way it comes out. But as you see, as we come forward, remember to start your trees a little bit under that misty area so that the mist will separate those sets of trees, okay? Even if you go up above the mist just a little bit with a couple trees, you'll still have that separation. That's ideal for showing a lot of distance. So as you can see, even though I've only done 2 rows. Well, this is a 3rd row, but my 1st row really didn't show up. But out of 2 rows, it actually looks like several rows of trees back there. It's a pretty good technique Bob Ross used throughout the years. So just stay tuned, keep watching. This picture comes together really nice, and I think you'll see a lot of techniques that you can use. This will help you be able to pick up a paintbrush and start painting right away. And just enjoy what you're seeing. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and ring that bell so that you'll be able to see more of my videos. This is the new channel that I am on. I was on my wife's channel. If you'll just click my name, Jonathan Slawball, then you'll be able to see my upcoming videos. And every so often I'll put a link in there for some of my old videos. You can go back and watch some of those. But I've enjoyed a lot of time with the family this week. I've been working a lot because, of course, we're busy. A lot of people coming out and getting stuff for Christmas. I hope everybody enjoyed their Christmas. Just enjoying time with family. You just do what you got to do, and Some people, decide to stay home and stay safe, and some people decide to go out and uh, venture out to their family. So uh, I don't I don't like to judge people for doing what they want to do. Um, but whatever you have to do to enjoy life, that's what you should do. Uh, Family, you don't get family. Uh, you only get the family that you have. So enjoy them while you can. I kind of like this idea in a way because I don't have to try to talk while I'm painting. That's very helpful. Um, and plus, I had, while I was painting, there was a lot of commotion going on. So I had, I decided to go ahead and just paint it and not do my voiceover. It worked out well because it allowed my wife to do some things she needed to do and not worry about messing up my recording. Uh, this ended up being a pretty long video. I hope that we can get through this and you guys can enjoy it. If you have to, fast forward through it and watch as much as you can. Um, my lighting in here wasn't too bad, but I'm hoping to get a little bit better studio stuff set up. And you notice there what I'm doing is just blending the top edge of them trees upward to make them look further back. You can always do that technique by just lightly going over an area, and it will make it look further back. Even if you put texture on trees and tree branches and leaves, you can still lightly go over it. Uh, don't tap on it. Just take your brush real light over top of it, and it'll look like it's further back from your other painting. So keep that in mind. And remember, you can always paint over what you have. If you don't like what you have, put a big mountain in front of it or a stone, and just keep covering up what you don't like. You can put a big tree up there. You'll see a couple of those as I'm painting today. Um, that I ended up covering up a couple things with a couple big rocks, couple big trees, and it works out good. Um, just don't forget that. We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents, and that is the truth. But I definitely enjoyed this. Uh, it's relaxing. You can take your mind off a lot of things. I've been doing some paintings for people that are more um, traditional type painting, painting people and animals, and I tell you, sometimes you just got to get back to doing freestyle painting um, to get your mind at ease. You don't have to try to perfectly do something. It's nice to just relax while you paint sometimes. So even if you're doing paintings for other people that are highly detailed, every so often paint one of these so you can take your mind off of it and get back to the root of just relaxing while you paint. That's why a lot of abstract painters they just throw their paint up there. They whatever's in their mind they put on the canvas, and it helps them cope with a lot of things in life. Now I am going to start doing some live paintings. So just keep posted, keep an eye out for me, and I'll do some live paintings. I got to make sure I've got this OBS studio figured out really well before I go live, because I don't want to keep giving you poor quality videos. That's not going to help us. I want my audience to be happy, and get what they come here to see. They want to see how to paint a little bit and put a brush in the paint and put the paint on the canvas. Me and my grandson painted a picture earlier, and we normally start out. I try to put some things in the sky, uh, some clouds, some a sun and stuff like that. And next thing you know, I'm um, painting transformers and people fighting. So yeah, I've got a 6-year-old grandson. He loves to play Fortnite, and by the time we're done with the painting, we've painted in a whole bunch of different characters that don't belong in an outdoor scene. So I'm still working on that little guy. He's probably going to wind up being painting abstract paints, because he really just loves to mix it up, put paint everywhere, put big globs of paint, throw paint. So he's going to be interesting. But everybody paints differently. You can take these techniques that I'm doing here and just go wild with it. You can take these techniques and paint people, crowds of people. The same way I'm doing these trees, you could do like the heads of people way back in the distance, and then just kind of do little strikes with your brush, and it'll look like crowds of people. So use these techniques, and it'll work out well for you. Uh, when you're trying to paint a scene where it's a rainy day, you can take this misty look and just tap in some white. Just keep tapping it in over a dark color, and it'll look like there's a lot of mist and haze from the morning. The morning dew that comes on the ground. So just enjoy this. You notice here I've made the paint a little bit darker. I put some black in with that last grayish blue color that I did. I am a little colorblind, so I don't always know exactly what colors I'm using. I know what color the tube says, but sometimes my greens and my blues and stuff kind of blend together. So just bear with me. Uh, I can see colors well enough to know if they're light or dark, so that's a good thing. But it definitely makes my painting exciting for me to, especially when I'm doing something for somebody, make it perfectly, the color coordination perfectly right is a challenge. Uh, but everybody can paint, don't forget that. So um, just enjoy it. Uh, Maybe one day we can get together and actually I can do a painting, a live painting, and you guys could be there while I paint some pictures. I would love to do that. I love painting out on the street. I have a little more freedom whenever I do that. I don't have to try to make it perfect for camera and stuff like that. So sometimes that is even more free. And don't forget, my paintings are always for sale. So if anybody wants to get a hold of one, um, leave me a comment. I'll figure out a way for you to get in contact with me, and we can try to arrange something. I have a little bit on Facebook. It's Paintings by Jonathan. If you look that up, I do have a page under my wife's account, um, but it is public. I have quite a few live paintings on there. So just keep an eye on that, and come and visit me over there. I'm probably going to do an About Me page so I can just put links on there and people can come and look at that. So, what I'm doing right now is I'm getting ready to put some rocks because coming down this mountain on each side, you'll have rocks um, that come down close to the water, and then you'll have some trees and stuff, and this really makes your painting stand out. You don't want just a bunch of trees because you do have land and stuff that's going to separate those trees. But if you notice, those trees are still a long ways away. Uh, the place that we look at Blackwater Falls is still, 200 yards away from the actual falls. So the trees are way back in the distance. Now, you'll start seeing rock formations once we get up here closer, which I will be showing you soon. I'm getting ready to put a couple big trees up in front of these trees. And I used that 3/4 inch brush. My brother gave me that brush for Christmas. He gave me a set of brushes. They worked out really well. If you get the regular artist brushes, they're hog hair bristles. You can still form a nice edge. Now watch what I do here. It's a uh, I'm I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put this first tree. Basically, I think I end up doing the tree here first. Just a regular tree. You're just tapping back and forth with the corner of this brush, and you basically, I mean, that just makes a tree pretty simple. Um, then you can come back and put highlights on it. But here in a minute, you'll see that I make a evergreen tree that it makes it, it's just really simple to do. Um, the way my canvas is setting right now, it kind of makes it look like it's tilted. It's not tilted. It's the way the camera's hitting it. So I've got to adjust my camera angles and stuff to make this a little bit better. But you'll see here, I'm just throwing a couple nice trees up in front of these smaller trees because as this gets closer to you, you'll be able to make out trees, whereas the trees further that I put down first, those are so far away that you can't really tell where the branches are and all those things. And we do that illusion for the purpose of making your eyes think that it's a long ways away. So that gives you distance in your painting. Now that I put those trees in there, you'll see I come back after I put this other tree. You see this how sharp of an edge this thing has. I was able to start the top edge of my evergreen tree, and then just with the top corner of that brush, I go back and forth like a Z shape. Uh, you're just basically tapping. Uh, don't just tap once, maybe tap, tap, and then come back on the left side, tap, tap, right side, tap, tap. And don't forget a little bit in the middle because you don't want the front side of that tree to be completely bare. And as you get closer to the bottom, you just put a little bit more pressure on the brush, and that will make it all come together. Now this could turn out to be a good snow scene. I mean, I could have just started putting snow at the bottom edges of these trees, and I could have easily made this into a snowy scene. Um, but today we're going to end up putting water. And normally what I would have done, see, I come up there, I get the starting of that tree, and then I just use the top corner of the brush, and I just start tapping back and forth. Yeah, you see, my wife is trying to get in and out of the living room. I'm painting here in my living room, and I actually had a bed set up here for my mother, so and I still have it here. She didn't stay here with me, but I had her bed and stuff set up here at my house so that she would be downstairs. So one day I'll get that straightened out and moved out of the way. But I've tried to have everything set up for her. Now, what I'm doing here on the right hand side, on the left hand side, is I'm starting to tap in another big tree. And all you do is put paint on your brush, and you kind of try to just shape a tree. Okay, this takes practice. You just practice and practice. Um, I try not to make the trees all the same height. Put some higher and some lower, and that'll give you some distance. Now you notice, you know, each one of those trees look like they're on a hill, and that's what we want, because those both of those hills are coming down toward the water where the top of the falls is going to start. So up there right behind that big tree in the middle, I'll probably start a little bit of water, and then it'll come forward, and that'll be the top of the falls. So you'll see how that comes out. I'm right here. I'm getting ready to put just a little bit of water. I really didn't need to do that yet because um, it's I didn't have any dark color under this. Okay, but I am picking up a little bit of that dark color from those trees, so it is still kind of letting me lay out a little bit of water, a little bit darkish water in there. I'm going to come back with a little bit of, once I darken in that whole area, I'll come back in with some white and start highlighting some water up on there. But a lot of times you use that fan brush for putting water in. You can use it for putting snow in. And basically, whenever you're doing waterfalls, you just go side to side, and then you pull down every so often, straight down. That gives you, looks like water is splashing over a rock or whatever's up on that waterfall. So let that brush work for you. Um, Now I'm getting ready to put some rocks in here. I'm just taking the brown. It's just Van Dyke brown. Load quite a bit up on your knife, and I got two knives off of Amazon. And if you go to Amazon and you look up palette knife, you'll see a couple sets there, and they're pretty good sets. So don't be afraid to pick up. I think these things were like $10 for two of them or something. It was a pretty good price. It won't break the bank, and they do pretty well. So I just took a little bit of highlight, white with a little bit of brown in it. You can even put some gray, a little bit of black in with it. Um, and then just lightly go back over that brown. And you can see it made like a nice big boulder rock look back there. And don't forget, that's still quite a ways away, so you're not going to see a whole lot of detail in that stone. But as we get closer to us, I'll show you some more stone that you'll be able to see a lot different, a lot more detail. After I'm done with this section here, I do zoom in so that you can see a little closer of what I'm doing. For paintings, now you know that the further away, the better they look. When you're up close to them, if you get a lot of detail in them, and then you stand back from that painting, it's going to look a lot better. So don't be afraid of looking at your painting and it not looking as good as you want, because if you stand back from it, a lot of times it looks a lot better. So when you're at a gallery, don't forget you're standing away from a painting, 6-7 feet away from a painting, and that's when it looks good. You're when you hang it on your wall, you don't stand up against your paintings. You stand at a distance, and that's how you know if they're going to look good. Right here, I'm just taking the edge of my knife and just scratching some tree branches and some sticks and twigs in there. I really am liking this camera. I was using my phone. I think that I can get more detail out of this camera. I'm running at 1080p high definition, and my computer seems to be doing pretty well. Now I tell you, this computer, one of my grandkids' friends built this computer, and it really does good. I have done a lot of recording with it, and it really is doing well. So what I'm getting ready to do here is I'm going to put a little bit of highlights on the tree trunks of these trees. So you just take a lighter color. You can do a light brown. You can even do a little bit of white. But you want a couple pieces of this tree branch through the middle of these trees to show. So you just take a little bit off your palette, and scratch it, just scoop a little bit up on the longest part of your blade and just touch little parts on that tree. Now this part here I used yellow ochre. It's like a goldish yellowish color, but it seems to look good whenever you put it up against a brown color on a tree. It almost appears to be green at a distance. And as far as these trees are back, you don't want to see like bright yellow, greenish trees right now because they're too far away. So don't forget that. Now when I was painting here, I really couldn't see the lighting where I was. I really couldn't see the colors too much on these trees while I was doing them. I was getting a little bit of a glare, but I think they came out pretty good. So I'm going to switch back over to that 1 inch brush or 3/4 inch brush, and those are pretty cheap brushes. You can get a set of those at a really good price, but they really do a good job. I've used these brushes, and don't be afraid to get a cheaper set of brushes and just use them till you can't use them anymore. They're still good for blending. They're good for putting highlights on your trees and stuff. You really have to make sure that you use the resources that you can get to. You don't want to spend so much money that you can't afford to paint. So um, I use a couple brushes from the hardware store for painting some of my big parts of my trees and my big parts of my background. Um, and it's a polyurethane brush, but it works good for oil paint, so I'm happy with them. So I'm taking this brush and I'm highlighting the trees. Sorry that I'm not completely in focus there with the top left corner of that painting, um, but I didn't realize my camera was off of that edge. All you're missing is that one tree that I'm doing there, though, just the top edge of it. So just don't forget to try to make sure you form the tree and make it look like a tree. Um, you want, when you tap highlights, you don't just want one little highlight. When you get to one area, kind of tap a couple times, because it's going to be bunches of leaves in that one area, and then kind of move a little bit to the left or right under it and tap a few times until it looks like a tree. Okay, so what I'm getting ready to do now is I'm getting ready to just put a bunch of color at the bottom of this. I normally, when I start a painting, I normally would have already taken some of my sky color and completely covered the bottom for either water um, or snow, but you can definitely um, go ahead and cover the bottom when you start the painting. Um, I just wanted to get started right away, and I didn't take the time to go ahead and put some color on the bottom. So now I'm rushing to try to put some dark color, because basically you don't want to run into where you're having to fill this in as you're painting, because every time you go to paint something, you got to fill in all that white, and it's better to just put a darker color in there, and then cover it back up with highlights. So I'm just going back and forth, filling in that area with a dark color. Uh, the oil that was on that canvas is starting to dry out, because it's winter time. Um, the the heater's on in the living room, and it's just really filling that area up, and it's drying out really quick. So that's what happens when you run those heaters. They dry everything out really fast. It helps to dry your paintings, because oil-based paintings, they take at least a week to start drying, and then to give them to somebody, you got to make sure they're almost 2 weeks dry before they can handle it. So yeah, you notice I was looking at the camera while I'm while I was painting on that. That's kind of weird that you can look that far and just paint that in. So there you go. I got some dark color there. Now we're going to go, I'll probably start I think I start putting in some more, might put in another tree. I'm not sure if I do that now or not, but I think I'm going to put some rocks in now, or maybe some more water. But before you start putting that white for the water in, you want to make sure that you really have some dark color there, because you have to have dark for you to see the light, and you have to have light to see the dark. So uh, they go hand in hand. Now I'm just drying my brush off good. I normally put a beater rack there so I can just uh, beat the brushes out. I didn't have that set up good today, so I really was just wanting to get in there and paint this picture. I wanted to get this picture done. I'm just taking some more of that brown, that Van Dyke brown, and I'm going to put in, deciding where I'm going to put those rocks, because this thing needs to start coming together and looking like a waterfall layout. Uh, so I think I'm coming up there. Yeah, there you go. So you decide where your land's going to go, and it's basically it's going to be rocky land. Uh, it'll get covered back up with a few trees, and every time you put a rock in, it pushes back the rest of your scenery. So as you can see, with that rock coming up in front of there, it pushes those trees in the background even further back. So, and then I come up with a nice dark stone there. And that really helps push the rest of those rocks back. My wife was really into this painting. She likes the mountains, and I don't blame her. They're beautiful. So you see, you just take that brown and you spread it all over wherever you're going to do it. You notice I don't just go in one long streak. You kind of put some on, and you're shaping rocks, okay? So when you come back with the highlights, a light color, a light brown, or whatever color you want to put on there. I put a little bit of blue in this time to give it a little bit of a gray color, because sometimes your rocks are going to look gray. When you get up close, you may see some that are brown, but you notice I just start up at the top edge of that stone, and this time I put some yellow ochre in with it, and I just kind of pulled across it. And what happens is, where I put the dark color on, I left some bumps in there with the paint. So when I lightly go over it with the other color, with the light color, it's going to touch those high bumpy areas, and then the low areas it's not going to touch. So it will naturally give you the look of a rock. Uh, it's a great technique that Bob Ross used. Um, if you look back there at the stone that I did earlier, you can tell that's a nice big stone that's out in front of those rocks. And you see that on the mountains a lot. This is all from West Virginia mountains, so uh, lots of rock. So in this painting, if I would have just kept trees, I'm putting more rock in this one than I did in any other of my um, my Black Waterfalls paintings. But I tell you, uh, I wished I would have done that in most of my other ones, because I've been up on top of that falls before. It's not the safest thing to do, but when I was little, I was up on top of those. Um, we just walked back through the woods, and next thing you know, we were on top of these Blackwater Falls. Kind of scary, kind of cool at the same time, but if uh, you realize how much rock and stuff's back up on those mountains, when you're coming down those paths, you just see big rocks and boulders everywhere. So, yeah, you definitely want to make sure there's rocks and stuff all over this area. It is a waterfall. It's almost like, you know, the water has created a canyon, you know. So that really makes it look cool. So that really gives you the natural look. As many stones as you can put in there. I mean, if you went and hand painted every stone, uh, it would take you triple the amount of time that I'm painting this. This is a pretty long video. I'm hoping that I can actually upload it, because it is pretty long. This is a video I would have liked to do live, but it just didn't work out right. So I'm getting ready to put in another tree, I think, another big evergreen tree. Now I wish that I would have used my oh, I'm doing a little bit of water here, so I just kind of start back and forth a little bit, and then pull straight down, just to give you a little bit of water that is going over a rock or a stone. Um, but for the most part, you're just going back and forth a little bit, just to show the water. And you're not going to see too much of that yet. I'm going to put a little dark areas in that water, so that you'll see the water a little bit more. And then I'm going to put a few stones up on there, and you'll see how I do that technique. I put a little dark color on one side of the brush, light brown or white on the other side, and when you pull it across, when you make the little round shape, it actually highlights the stone at the same time that it highlights the stone at the same time that you make the stone. So right there, I was just pulling some highlights. I'm grabbing the bottom edge of that rock. I could have done this right after I made the rock, but what I want here is I want reflections. The water's not still, so I don't really need to keep these reflections. But if I have these reflections under my waterfall, or under the water that's running, it just makes it look more realistic, because you will still see that edge of the land in your water. And that's what I'm doing here. I just want to get that into the water. Some of that's not going to stay as a reflection, because I just wanted to pull some of that dark down, and then it'll work out once I do put all my water in there. But see, now you can see it turned out to look like water. And even if it didn't, it could be mist back there. It wouldn't matter, because those trees are going to reflect into the water, into the ground. It'll show shadows everywhere. So whatever you want it to look like at the end, that's fine. and don't worry about if you think it's a mistake, just don't worry about that. Just enjoy your painting. It'll come out in the end. It'll come out in the wash. That's what they say, right? But I'm going to be putting another big tree in, and that's going to cover up some of this rock that I just put in, the big rock. I just needed another big tree in there, really. But I think you're going to like the technique that I use, where it's almost like a watercolor brush. It comes to a nice point, but it has a lot of hair on the brush. I think it is one of the watercolor brushes. But the nice part about them is you can really pick up a lot of paint with them, and you can bring them to a nice sharp edge. So I like to use those paint brushes whenever I'm doing big trees, and I'm going to be doing a big tree here in a few minutes. I put a little bit of Van Dyke Brown. Sorry about that, guys. I forgot to hit the transition, but it'll be good. I was wondering why I was seeing myself in that screen. Now, if I wouldn't have caught it quick enough, I'd have been standing there with, a full production of the video, and I wouldn't have even had any of the last of my video. So, I'm still learning this thing. So anyways, now I'm putting in another stone up in front of that other tree over there, over on the right. You just take the Van Dyke Brown and you bring in some more land and stones that's back there. You can shape them any way you want. You can pull them out and make big jagged edges on them. But I'm basically just trying to bring that land up till we get to the mouth of the water, where the waterfall is going to start. So those rocks are going to keep coming forward until we get to where the waterfall starts coming down. Now, at first I thought that I had already come down too far and I wasn't going to have room to put my waterfall. I think it works out okay, the way that I did it. If I had it to do over again, I might have started the trees further back, but it's going to be fine. I mean, I've done this before, and it'll work out fine. Just enjoy it. It's going to come together fine. I think it's pretty interesting what the painting's doing right now. I mean, what I'm looking at is looking pretty cool. And the same thing with this. You do whatever colors you decide you want to make that rock, the highlights, and just start lightly touching it. It's the same technique I use for all of my mountains. When I'm doing a mountain, you just put a light color on your knife. The only thing I don't do with these, when I do these rocks, is I don't come back and put a shadow color behind it, like a blue. You could take a blue and kind of put behind your highlights, and that would give you nice shadows. But you don't have to do that. You can just leave the dark color behind that light color and it'll be fine. It'll look like rocks. So as you see, I have, if you want to come straight down with your highlights, it'll look more like a cliff. I wanted these rocks to kind of be going down at a left angle toward the waterfall. But if I would have wanted it to be a cliff, I would have pulled straight down very lightly, straight down, and it would have looked like a cliff edge. As you can see, I did a little bit on the left hand side where I come straight down. It looks like it falls straight down right there. And that's what I wanted it to do there, because that's what you're going to be looking at, that face of rocks on this side, on the left side. So now I come back with a little bit brighter white, and this is where it gets a little tricky, because you got to make sure you have enough paint on the brush to go on there. Sometimes you have to thin this paint down a little bit to make it actually stay on top of that other color. And I don't know if I got I think I got it bright enough back in there. It's not close enough to me that I want it to be too bright. But definitely it's going to look like water. And the thing is that I started getting close to those rocks and pulling upward. And what I noticed is it started making my water look like it was going uphill right there. But I'm going to come back later and put a little dark black under those edges of the rock, and it'll smooth that water back down. It'll make it look level again. Sometimes that happens when you're doing water. If you're not going straight across, it can make it look like it's going to run out of your painting. And we don't want it to do that. But right now, the way that my painting is, my camera's angled, it looks like it's going downhill, and it's really not. I will try to get the angle of my camera better next time. I want to make sure that it's coming straight in at the painting. I just wanted you to be able to see my brush strokes, so I want it to kind of come in at the side. The problem is I'm coming in from the top of the painting with my webcam, so that could be what's giving it that effect of kind of leaning. But I'm definitely liking the painting so far. I'm happy with it. I'm here soon. I'm gonna get. I think I'm getting ready to do a little bit of the rocks. Yeah, there's gonna be stones, that get smooth because they're up in the water. And as you can see, I just kind of pull up and at an oval shape, okay? It has, I put dark brown on one side of that brush, and then I put almost white on the other side of that brush. And as you can see, it leaves stones, rounded stones in that water back there. And that's what we want it to look like, is stones setting up in that water. Okay, that's looking pretty good now. You don't want to work them too much. I just kind of blended the bottom edge of those rocks. And you can come back with some thin white paint a little bit later and really highlight that white. Let some of it come over the top edge of them rocks. You can do as much detail as you want on there. I'm not going to go crazy with that. because I'm gonna run out of time. Um, but just stick with me. You'll see the techniques that I use, and you can use those techniques and make some beautiful things with them. So, and you can even use it for a person when you do a person's head and you want to highlight on the top edge of a hat or something. You can put the bright color on the top edge of the brush, and then brush and have a dark color on the bottom edge, and make a highlight and a dark color at the same time. You can use that for so many different things. Here I'm just putting in some more dark color because I'm I'm getting ready to do that waterfall, and make sure it's nice and dark where that waterfall is going to come over this edge. Uh, this is called Blackwater Falls, and it really uh, gets dark where the water comes down off the falls. So we want to make sure that that is pretty dark down here. And you notice it pushes everything back pretty good. I'm happy to see that. Now, if you like this painting, make sure you leave me a comment and subscribe. I'm not looking to get rich off of painting online. I've got a long ways to go, but I may be able to help someone out there that's thinking, well, I've tried to paint. I got news for you. I tried to paint 20 years ago, and it's funny, as I got older, I was able to paint uh, with, by watching Bob Ross. I guess, as I got older, I was able to understand more of what he was saying than when I was 20 years old. So um, keep that in mind. The older you get, the better you may become at trying this. So it's never too late. You can enjoy it anytime. Uh, so leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. If you want to try to get in touch with me and get some one-on-one lessons, I'd be willing to try that. Okay, so what I'm getting ready to do is I'm taking another one of them watercolor brushes. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. I know someone had told me what, like a broad tip brush or something, but it comes to a point you can load a lot of paint and watch what it does. I lightly touch the branch. I had black and brown with this brush on this brush. So then I was able to bring another branch down, and you just put more pressure as you come down further. Okay, so that gives us a nice big tree right there in front of those stones, and you notice that really helps push even the stones further back. So I'm getting ready to put another stone up in front of that tree. Um, and that the reason was is it's a waterfall. I didn't want to leave that open space over on the right side of that tree. Um, so I'm going to close that back up with a stone. And that's what I was telling you guys before, is that um, you can put something big out in front of something you feel like is a mistake or doesn't look right, and you can put a big tree out there, you can put a big stone, you can cover it up and make it look the way you want it. So that's what you'll see me get ready to do. If you look at the bottom of that tree, I end up putting a stone over there because it doesn't look right for the water to be back behind that tree, because my waterfalls is going to be on the left of that tree. So if water was still going the other direction, it probably, your waterfall would be over there somewhere. So I'm just lightly uh, using that brush and starting from the tips of the branches and bringing them down. A little bit of a wiggle coming down to the tree trunk. And that will help you. Every so often you'll see us stand up. I'm trying to look back from the picture to make sure it looks right from a distance. So forgive me if I do that a couple of times. It's because I want to make sure that the colors and stuff look right. Um, and the next time I do this, I think I'll get the lighting a little bit better so that you guys can see the lighting on my colors and stuff. See, now that's what I do is I kind of put the brush, lay the brush down flat, I pull across and then straight down. That gives you, that shows you it's coming off the top edge and then it comes straight down. Make sure that that water comes straight down as much as possible so that it looks like water. When water falls, it's going to come straight down. So, and then what I do is I just kind of went up there and touched a couple areas to give you some highlights of some waves that are up there on top of the waterfalls because it just looked a little dark up there. So see, I pull side to side and then it's pretty light, a light touch that you're doing this. But yeah, that brush does very good. You just load it up with the white paint and then you pull across the top edge of the water and pull straight down. That makes it work very well. Now there's, yeah, I wanted it to be a little bit wider there. And then there was a couple more highlights I wanted to get up there. So what I'm getting ready to do, I'm going to put that stone out in front. When I do that, you'll see that that water right now it looks like it's just flat. But when I put that stone out there, you'll see it makes it look like a cliff, and then that will help you with the waterfall actually coming down there. And it was funny because I wasn't sure exactly if this is the way I wanted it to look, but it doesn't turn out bad. I was happy once I was done. So you see I start over on the right hand corner and I just form the rock straight out, and what you want to do is come out in front of that waterfall a little bit, and that will help push the water fall back a little bit and let the stone stick out in front of it, and that's really what I wanted to see. I'll pull it down a little bit more here. See how I did that? And now it's going to, yeah, see it actually broke that waterfall. That way it looks like this stone is actually setting out in front of that waterfall. And right now it just looks like a round piece of, a round thing sitting out there. Um, Once I put the highlights on, it looks more like a stone. So you'll see what I'm getting ready to do is just, I'm going to put that light brown and a little bit of white highlights on there. So here we go. And this might have been what kind of bugged me a little bit about that picture. I ended up getting, that stone didn't look right at first. And when you do a stone, you got to be careful of the angles that you're doing. Uh, you don't want it to come straight across on the top with the highlights, because then it looks like um, you're looking down on the stone, and you kind of want to be looking at the waterfalls, which means that you would see the highlights on the front of the rock and not the back of the rock, or the top of the rock. So you got to be careful with where you put the highlights. I kind of bring it out a little bit on the top edge and then roll it around the front edge, and leave it a little bit dark underneath so that it looks like you're just seeing the very top edge of that rock. Now, all of these rocks you could actually put. See, I did another waterfall there because I that's a pretty big waterfall that comes down right there, and we want to make sure that we got enough water there. Now, right there in the middle, I'm gonna have another. There's another big stone that comes out there that hangs over the edge of Black Waterfalls. So there will be another stone there, and the water goes in between those two stones. Those stones have been there as long as I can remember. So here I'm getting ready to put a nice big stone that comes out in front of. That's the one that hangs over the edge in the middle. It's kind of weird the way you have to do it, but you kind of just turn your knife and shape that stone. And you can see it kind of sets up above the water. That way the water doesn't come up over top of it. It just goes around it. And it's kind of a rounded type of rock. So the water can actually go around it and fall right behind it. So it's interesting. So you see that protrudes, but yet the water still can escape right behind it. So now I'm going back with the highlights, the white, and I don't want to get too crazy, um, which I might have gotten a little crazy there. Um, and what I probably would have done, I I'd probably put another highlight up a little bit closer on this side, but maybe that rock is just sitting there like that. Let's see, this stone kind of is rounded, and then it's a little dark there, and that's what I want to show there. See how it sets out in the front of that water. Now, if I would have messed up and had too much of that highlight on top, it wouldn't have looked like it sticks out. So yeah, you have to really look at how you do that. A little bit of a highlight on the front edge of that. It looks like it sticks out there quite a ways. But that's what gives you the 3D effect. Just barely touching that, it'll leave little dark spots, white spots, all in that rock. Make it look realistic. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to do some splashes up underneath that water edge, and where that waterfall is actually hitting. I'm using a filbert brush there. Not the best brush to use for that, but you can use just about any brush. Then I just kind of do a back and forth motion to just show some few waves coming out from that. Now I will be putting another boulder out there in the middle somewhere. There's a boulder not too far from that stone that's sticking out. But you see, I go back and forth, and then I kind of push up a little bit, and that gives you a few more waves that come out from all that water. And you really need to do that, or it doesn't give you that realistic effect. My canvas was getting a little dry, so you see how it's sticking every so often. It's nicer if that's really nice, and you don't want too much oil on there, but if it's nice and wet still, it helps you slide across the canvas. Now what I'm going to do is, I think I'm putting one more stone out on the right side of that other waterfall, right on the left side of it, just because there is a lot of stones out there. Now you see there's a whole lot of things I got to fill up on the left hand side, because that's still a lot of wide open spaces. There's not that much water down at the bottom of this waterfall, so you got to get and basically what I did here is I put another big tree just sticking out here, and like I said before, you just tap back and forth, get your tree branches, the layout of your tree. This is going to be this is also an area where I couldn't really see that well what was going on, but I basically filled in a lot of this area with that big tree, and that's what you can do. you and look, I wasn't even looking at it. I just kept tapping and looking at the camera. Um, but that's the way you have to do it. You fill in those voids. Okay, so see now I got that big area covered up with some trees, and you still see the rocks behind it, um, and that makes it realistic looking, you know. It's been a long day though, because just setting up this video has been a trip. It's I started this video at like 6 o'clock maybe. Um, it's already almost 11 o'clock at night, and the problem was I couldn't get my sound to come back out, and then I couldn't get my transitions, my scenes that I had pre-recorded. I couldn't get them to play back properly. So one of these days I'll get some real training on this OBS studio. I do like it. It's fun to work with. I want to get some animations and stuff um, for my screen so that I can have the subscribe buttons and the all the specialty things to put on there. Eventually, I'll do that. But I think my video's better than what I've had in the past. Just because I've been able to slow down, set the video up, and right here I'm just pulling a few more branches up out of this tree. Okay, um, using the same brush. It's that little brush that is used for watercolor. Um, comes out to a nice sharp point. It's got a lot of hairs on it, and it lets you make tree branches and stuff really nice. Uh, Now Bob Ross always used the liner brush, but this brush does very well for me. So you just throw some sticks and twigs. There's always branches that are going to come out of the tops of your trees. Um, and then after this, you'll go back and put highlights on it. Now, when I did these highlights, I went a little bit. I ended up doing a little bit lighter highlights. Now, if this is Blackwater Falls, I mean, you're looking at it from an angle that I don't know that I've seen before, but I'll take it. Maybe I'm standing further out on one of the decks that are out there, and I'm able to see more than I'm supposed to see. So um, I might have to just like this view. Maybe I can go out there and see if I can find this view somewhere. Um, it's definitely unique. It looks like Blackwater Falls in some ways. Some ways I'm not sure. Um, I would just have to go out and take a look at it again, see if there's an area that would make it look like this. So, and on that left side of that screen, I had to stand up and take a look at it. It wasn't bad, but on that left side, I couldn't see it that well. I had a glare or something on that side. Um, You notice my autofocus was wanting to go crazy. Uh, but I do like this little razor cam. It would be really good for just staying stationary and not moving around a lot. So somebody that's doing video gaming and live streaming with video games, I think it would do really good. I tried it with Fortnite running in the background and me talking on the camera, and it seems like it runs really smooth. So it would really work out good for something like that. I don't think I'll ever do that. Now right here what I'm doing is kind of putting in a little bit of mist under that area, and that's, if you notice, I decided, well, I don't think I'm going to do too much of that because water does create mist, but I didn't want to get too much of that mist, okay? Uh, it'll create a mist to where you won't see much of those rocks sometimes, but I didn't want to hide all that stuff, so just I just was really careful with what I did there. Now, what I probably would have done if I had thought about it before is I may have come back in there and actually misted that whole area out first and then brought some water down. Um, I could have also put a couple stones in there and then let the water hit those stones and go off at a different angle. There's all kinds of things that you can do with the waterfalls. But I still like the way it turned out. I've got to put in, I'm going to put another stone over on this side of the of this water here, and this will help push everything back again. You see right there, by it getting darker there, it's going to push that tree back and then everything behind it further back. And it kind of did something cool that I didn't realize it was going to do. Um, and that is, it ended up carving out that side of the mountain and making it look like it was rounded, which was pretty cool. Um, you'll see what I'm talking about once we get this rock carved out here. See, now that now that's coming out in front of it, so um, you see how the waterfalls kind of went further back now. So this side over here now looks like it's the closest to us, whereas at first it looked like the other side was closer to us. So now when I bring the rest of these stones in here, it's going to look like this whole side is my viewpoint, looking out on the right side of that waterfall. So you'll see what it looks like here shortly. I think you'll see what I'm talking about. It really turned out to be a pretty cool effect. And I didn't know that it was actually going to make that effect, but it was pretty cool. So right now all I'm doing is I'm getting a couple more highlights to put on this stone here, and you see that this stone is just kind of rounded, and it's got all kinds of little bumps and jagged edges, and you know that's what you want with the stone. It needs to be You can take, after you do a stone, you can take a brush and barely brush it, and it'll smooth it out like a like a boulder is, if you want a bunch of smooth edges and stuff. So um, this rock's kind of got just a big crater over inside of it. Um, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring another big stone out there, and this is going to be what's going to create the cliff edges. I decided to bring a little bit of water down over, see, the front edge of that rock. So now it looks like that water actually fell down over that edge, which I like. Yeah. See, that is the way that water falls over there. So I'm happy with that. So now that I've got that edge there, I'm I'm gonna put like three more sets of rocks on the left side of this, and everybody just hang in there. I'm not too far from being finished. I've got to do a few more stones, um, and then you'll see how this turns out. I put some burnt sienna in with this brown. It'll give us some reddish color in that stone. Uh, Burnt sienna and Van Dyke brown, you put those two together, they really do cool effects whenever you're making like a log cabin, and it gives you all the extra colors in the wood that you might want in there, and it works pretty well on these old stones and stuff out at the water as well. So uh, what I'm going to do now is um, I think I end up bringing another, yeah, right here. I, what I would have liked to do is use that 3/4 inch brush. It just makes it faster. Um, but yeah, I went ahead and did this other evergreen tree, and brought it on up there. I ended up putting some blue in with that color, and now as you see that really helped bring the rest of this together. Now that tree is up in front of the other trees, and is pushing all that back again. And then I just kind of tapped in a few extra things. Um, there was a few times in this painting I thought, well, maybe I, went too far, and I wanted to. There's a couple parts of the stumps in that tree that I'm wanted to show. Now, whenever you do yours, you can you don't have to make those tree trunks that big. I got a little overzealous. I probably would have used lighter brown color instead of more of that white color. But and you got to be really careful with waterfalls. As you see, you're starting to get a lot of white. You either go white or black. You can really drown your picture back out. So you got to be careful with the highlights on your rocks and stuff. Um, if I had time to go back in, which the video really was quite a long time, if I had time to go back in, I would have gone in and put dark spots back in those stones, so that I could define which part was hanging over which part, you know. And I could have shaped that stone a little bit better. But just remember that in when you're doing yours. Uh, Now this, I decided to do a pretty bright color on this last evergreen tree. Um, Not so sure how bright it got in the picture, so we'll see. But yeah, I decided to go a nice bright color and making sure I didn't have my head in front of where I was painting because I really didn't want you guys to lose the actual painting part of this. So you see, you don't want to cover up all the dark parts of this tree, but what you can do is you can cover some of that trunk back up. Like I said, I got a little bit too big on that trunk. Um, and all it did for me was let me use some of that white back as a highlight on that tree. So there you go. Yeah. Okay. That didn't turn out too bad. So that's the way you do that. You make sure you get the sides, couple highlights on the sides, and then make sure you get in the middle of that tree, face the one that's facing you. You got to have a few highlights in there so that it looks round. You know, it doesn't look just flat. If you do just the sides, then of course the tree's going to turn out to look like it's just a flat tree with with lights on it, you know. So you seen what I did there. I tried to tone it down a little bit with the light because I had the light shining pretty bright on it. I might have, yeah, I decided to lighten it back up. I probably could have left it darker and might have seen more highlights than what we do now. So now what I decided to do was put some, I think some more of the cliff is what I decided to do here. And that's what you'll see me doing. I'm getting ready to put the brown and really just start covering that up. See what I'm saying here? And this is just cliff edges that are coming down beside of the there you go. So uh, that covers a multitude of sims, that big rock. Um, just if it wasn't looking right, you just gotta get it, put it in there. I'm just basically blocking in a bunch of color right now, and then I'll be coming back with some highlights and really carving these rocks and mountainside up. And I think this really helped out finishing this picture off. But I tell you, I still felt a little bit rushed on this picture, even though it did take a while. But I haven't done a live painting in a long time. Waterfalls can take some time, uh, but if you look back there at those trees, you really have a sense of there being millions of trees in there, just everywhere, you know. Um, and you see how these rocks, they just get carved out so nicely. And I'm just barely touching that. I did put a little bit of yellow ochre on these rocks this time to give it a little bit of a yellowish color. well, a little goldish yellow. Um, and that's something that I think helped the picture out a lot. Now, what I wanted to do is I ended up getting some more dark color because um, this the first stone that I put in there, I wanted to make sure that the next stone looked like it was in front of that stone, to kind of bring it around. And this is what you're going to see. It's going to make it look like it's rounded, um, because I want this stone to look like it's closer to me than that one was, or I'll see more of this stone. That's that's what's going to make it, give it that effect of it turning. It'll give me that round look. Okay, so as you can see now, I ended up putting a little darker. Let's see that with it being bright like that, that shows that that part of the stone is sticking out. The darker colors, and you don't really want to mess with that too much. I started to mess with it a little bit, but when that happens, you should leave it like that. It shows you that that part of the stone is round and sticking out. Don't be afraid to leave that with a nice bright highlight on it. So then, um, see, I came back and I wanted another dark ledge coming out there, and I didn't realize what I was doing at first, because when you're painting, when you're up against the painting, you don't really get to see what it's going to look like until you stand back. So um, but now, see, it's starting to look like the side of a cliff, and that's what's cool about painting. You end up seeing the side of a cliff there, and then you got, maybe a ledge right there, and then see how I kind of pulled that out, and it looks like that's the top of a big rock. Yeah, there you go. It's almost like I'm coaching myself into leaving it alone, and that's what I'm trying to do. But now I take that other brush that I did my tree branches with, and I just roll it through some white paint, some white, and I wanted to do, you want these to be pretty straight across with the painting edge. So the bottom edge of that painting, you want those, when you go side to side, you want it to be almost flat with the bottom of the painting, so it's straight. That way it doesn't look like it's falling out. And then right here, you're getting ready to see, I had to get some nice bright white back in there so that it shows you where the bottom of the cliff is. That's where the water lays up against it. And as you can see, that really makes carves the bottom of the rock out, so you know where it touches the water. I hope you've enjoyed this painting. I've had a good time painting it. And we're almost done with this thing. I hope you enjoy it. It took a while to do this one. I'm going to do some research, make sure I got everything perfect for my next live videos and stuff. Until next time that you guys come, God bless you. As you can see, you'll see, I'll probably put you'll probably see me put the dark color back under those stones back there, because I feel like it might have been a little, the top of that water up there might have looked like it was gonna, was leaning. Oh, there, here we go. I end up putting a rock out here in the middle of this water. Just another big stone, because that there is a couple big stones out there in the middle of Blackwater Falls. Okay. So you just carve out the stone with the knife, and then same thing as all of them. You come back, make your highlights where it'll look good. And who knows? I mean, if I end up getting too bright of a color on there, then maybe there is still some snow left from the winter time. I mean, you can make up whatever you want, whenever it comes to painting. You just tell people, well, I that's where I tripped and knocked a tree down with my leg, and that's why that tree's all broke up. You got to think of something. So what I did here is I just put a couple little highlights, just to let the light hit the water a little bit. It just helps. You want to add a couple details at the end just to brighten everything up. Just putting a couple of lights up there on top of the water, just so that the sun hits it. And then I think what I end up doing now is fixing the bottom edge of one of those rocks up there just to make it look like it's, nope,